1 year ago, I left Palestine to come to the United States. As I was leaving, my grandmother, Sarah, whispered in my ears. She said, "When you go away, you dare to see the place that you come from with new eyes." Now, I believe her. Although I have been here for a year, my NSL experience has been for 7 weeks. But what weeks they have been. All of us on this program have grown close, but we also have grown up. We have learned that there's just not one story to this conflict, that there's not just one narrative or one people that suffer. We took a chance, took a risk. We dared to address the reality of our conflict, but most importantly, we dared to take initiative to change it. This year, the New Story Leadership Program asked each candidate for a proposal for a project for change to be implemented in Israel and Palestine. When I first submitted my draft to the project, I was told I could collaborate with a team member to develop the idea. And the last thing that crossed my mind, the very last thing, was an Israeli student would be interested in working with me. Through the New Story Leadership Program, I met Sharouk, a young Israeli woman from Zichron Yaakov, who grew up in total isolation from the Palestinian community. Yet, she shares the same passion and the same vision that I have for creating the first ever after-school program to train young Palestinian leaders who mainly come from refugee camps. Coral and I challenged each other's perspectives, and we shared our stories as young women growing up in a conflict zone. Yes, we did disagree, and it was difficult at times, but we did learn to find common grounds because we were both dedicated to finding a solution to the conflict, to the bloodshed, to the violence, and to the suffering of people on both sides. Coral once told me that when she used to encounter Israeli Arabs in her town, her mother used to always say, "Look, here's your cousins." And today, I truly believe that Coral and I not only became like cousins, but we became very close friends. I recall during the 5th week of the NSL program, Coral and I were very desperate. And we decided to seek the help of the Palestinian delegation to look for funds for our project for change. When we arrived to the delegation, I noticed the Palestinian flag flying on the building, and I looked at Coral. I looked at her to read her face expressions. Coral didn't hesitate, not for a moment, and we walked into the Palestinian delegation. I felt very honored to have an Israeli walking by my side into my delegation. That day, I realized that both sides have to push themselves outside of their comfort zone and make sacrifices to open up doors to new opportunities. I also imagined what I would have done if I were to be invited into the Israeli embassy and to walk with Coral. 2 weeks later, my imagination turned into a reality. I was invited into the Israeli embassy to discuss with the ambassador, Michael Oren, the current peace negotiations. I had never visited the Israeli embassy before, and I presumed the security check would be tight. When we arrived in the morning, the security guards asked for our passports, but then they singled out the Palestinian students. They first called Maysam, a Palestinian from Gaza. Then they called me. Then they called the rest of us. I would later learn that they even asked some of us to take off pieces of our clothing. At that moment, I felt shocked. I felt like I was slapped on the face. I woke up from a nice dream that lasted for about a year here in America in the free land. That day, I was back at Columbia. I saw Columbia, the Israeli checkpoint in the Palestinian city of Ramallah. I saw a long line of people under the sun waiting for Israeli soldiers to check their IDs so they could cross to another Palestinian city. This is what my people go through on a daily basis. I question myself, my commitment to the program, and even the progress I'm making to better my future and my country. But this was not the whole story. It was the Israeli friends on my team that comforted me. They apologized to me to the manner in which the security guards of the Israeli embassy treated our group. That day, I realized I've made friends with Israeli leaders. And as Yarden said, that day, I realized that they're my allies. This experience could have destroyed our time in DC, could have destroyed our group, but it rather united us because we dared. We dared to see the place that we come from with new eyes. During these 6 or 7 past weeks, I worked in the office of Congressman Paulus. I had the opportunity to shadow him, to ask him questions about the US policy regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict. I even attended different hearings on Capitol Hill. I made every effort to share my story with people from the NSL circle and the outer of the NSL circle. I met Maysam, a Palestinian from Gaza who took on the challenge to travel to the United States and meet who's commonly known as the enemy in our society. I met Basil, who dreams to end the conflict, but through a one-state vision. I met Naor, whom I worked with on the Hill and taught me so many things about the Israeli society. I met Asil, another wonderful Palestinian lady who shares the same passion that I have for working with the PLO to unite the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. I met Nader, who dreams to develop the first fitness center in Bethlehem and Ramallah. I met Gal, an Israeli activist who worked very hard for about 10 years and still dreams to make a difference in his community. Together, we are ending the occupation. Together, we are building trust. Together, we are tearing down walls of oppression, hate, and fear. Together, we are creating a better future where Palestinians and Israelis treat each other as human equals. Today, we Palestinians and Israelis demand no more of our leaders than what we are doing currently in NSL: to trust, to dare, and to work together. Thank you very much.